Hey guys, it is Marcus and Terry with you today, and we're going to talk about something very important, something that I wish someone had told me when I was drinking, and those are the 7 reasons I keep drinking. And when I was trying to get sober about 9 years ago, I remember this endless cycle of promising that I was going to quit to myself, to people around me, and never being able to keep that promise and wondering why. I mean, there I was, I understood mentally, oh, it's as simple as not picking up a drink. I mean, what's wrong with you if you just can't pick up a drink? Like when you go to the bar, don't go to the bar. When you have drinks, get rid of the drinks. And I was really perplexed at why I continued to drink despite negative consequences in my life. I kept drinking. I kept getting deeper and deeper into the issues that drinking caused, and I didn't understand why I couldn't stop. What was the deal? Why couldn't I just have one or two? Why couldn't I stop completely? My life started to get better when I quit, but what was the deal? So today we're going to answer the question for you of why you keep drinking. What is the real reason? Are you a degenerate? Are you just an alcoholic? Can you not hold your liquor? Is there something mentally going on? What is the deal? Now, this is something we are going to unpack. There's a lot to cover. We're going to talk about 7 different things that caused us to continue drinking. So Terry, how you doing and what are your thoughts on this topic before we dive into the 7 reasons we keep drinking?
I'm doing all right, Marcus, and good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And yeah, I had some pretty, I would say, simple reasons for continuing to drink, but maybe there was some deeper down feelings and situations that were going on with me. But I definitely, when I was still drinking and I was getting towards the end, I did feel like that I was continuing to drink because I was a degenerate and an alcoholic and a loser and all that. I definitely had very low self-esteem,
Yeah.
but I kept drinking anyways, regardless of those negative consequences. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that was it was a tough thing, and really one of the biggest thing for me going towards the even towards the end was I liked drinking. I liked the way it made me feel, and that was a tough thing to get over.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too because I want to point out at the outset, at the risk of, taking those who don't think they're alcoholics and kind of turning that off. But I want to point out the fact that both Terry and I drank despite negative consequences. We had trouble with our jobs, our families, health problems, mental problems, deterioration of really our thought processes. And
Yeah.
I felt the same way Terry did. I felt like I was a degenerate. I felt like something was wrong with me. I felt like I had more mental illnesses than the DSM 5 book, which has a lot of mental illnesses. Apparently, there's one for just about everything now. And I thought I had all of them. And I felt like I had all of them. I felt like there was something wrong with me. And I didn't realize that these 7 things will keep you drinking no matter who you are. Like you could be the king of the world, the most upstanding person alive. And if you drink, these 7 things will take hold of you without fail. Now, the amount you drink is going to have bearing on how much this affects you, but I think it's important to bring out. So let's go ahead and dive into the 7 reasons you keep drinking, I kept drinking, Terry kept drinking, and pretty much everyone. So, number one, I have no better solution to your problems or your painful thoughts. Um, I had a lot of painful thoughts. I had a rough upbringing, not as bad as some, worse than some. It is what it is. But for me, the painful thoughts that I was left with, right? Like when you look at stuff, it's in life, abuse is called abuse because of what it does to the abused. It's the way it affects them mentally, physically, spiritually, and overall. And so I was left with painful thoughts, and I had no better solution to these thoughts than to drink. These thoughts would come up, I'd dwell on them. I didn't know how to shut them off, and so I would drink. But there was something happening when I drank as a solution to the problem and the painful thoughts. And we're going to get into that in just a minute. Terry, what are your thoughts on number one?
For for me, I did drink to escape, and because there was no better solution, that was more towards the end. For decades, I drank because it was fun. I had a good time drinking. Every once in a while, it was because I had a bad day, that sort of thing. I did not experience the abuse when I was growing up. Maybe I experienced benign neglect or something because my parents kind of let me do whatever I wanted. So I guess I didn't have too much guidance in my life. But for me, most of my life was the drinking was just a fun thing. Everybody else did it, that sort of thing. Towards the end, though, when I started to experience those negative consequences, I was definitely drinking to escape. I would have a big problem that came up that I caused or that I felt somebody else caused or whatever it was, and I'd drink. And I'd just drink to try to push that problem away or push it down the road. Of course, it came back. It came back with a vengeance, always came back worse or at least the same. And for me, that was kind of how it went. I think those last few years of drinking, definitely.
And I think it's
go ahead.
I think it's interesting to note the fact that Terry and I both started drinking for different reasons. I drank because it was cool, but I never really was like, oh yeah, this is it. I remember the first time I got drunk and I was like, wow, I basically just gave myself the flu. How is this fun? But towards the end, we were the same. And I think that's important to look at because it's like, okay, well, alcoholics are degenerates that had bad upbringings and have excuses. Not always. Alcoholics can be alcoholics because of alcohol. And that's one thing that you're going to learn in these 7 reasons that we couldn't stop drinking. You're going to learn that alcohol doesn't care who you are. And by the time you're an alcoholic, you're drinking to get rid of the effects alcohol gave you. And let me say that again. When you get to the point of being an alcoholic, you are not drinking because of whatever else happened. I thought I was. I was like, I'm drinking because of my childhood. I'm drinking because of this. And Terry was like, I don't know why I'm a freaking drunk. I don't know why I keep drinking. And we both had the same effects. I was blaming it on one thing. He didn't know. Today, 9 years later, or almost 9 years later, we know emphatically what it is. And a lot of what it is alcohol causes problems in your life when it's used to excess. Like, you get DUIs, you get legal trouble, you get job trouble, you get health trouble. This drink was not meant to be drank in the quantities that Terry and I drank. We were drinking lethal amounts. And what happened was we started to drink to get back to what we started to drink over in the first place. Like, here I was, and I'm like, okay, 3 years into my heavy drinking, now I'm drinking to get the base level of what I used to think I drank over. And it wasn't happy. What I needed was something completely different, which is what we're going to talk about in a minute. And I think that's an important one because a lot of us drink because, hey, there's no better solution to our problems or our painful thoughts. Painful thought comes in, we go drink because society and life and Dr. Freud with all of his books couldn't figure it out other than you had the hots for your mom. Right? And like, oh, that's it? Okay, yeah, I don't think so. But, go on with your PhDs, right? And we start to look at this and it's like no one went through and said, painful thoughts don't need to matter the way that you think they do. We'll get into that in a little bit. And let's get into number 2, which I think is very important, which is operant and classical conditioning. Now, there's an interesting thing that happens when you drink. Terry, tell us a little bit about what it was like when you first remember enjoying alcohol. Like, wow, this does it for me. I like this.
Oh, well, that would have been back in my teen years, and that was just having drinks with friends because everybody else is drinking, and it looks like fun, and then drinking and realizing it is fun. This is really fun, and that was it. It was just the positive feelings that it gave me, the fun, the that was the operant conditioning right there. It made me
Exactly.
feel good.
Yeah. And and I think if I look at mine, I remember loving the fact that alcohol took my anxiety away. I loved it. It was like the miracle. Got anxiety, drink. You might act like an idiot and do things you don't want to do, but there's no anxiety, which is why you're acting like an idiot. Sometimes a little anxiety is good because it's like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't, you know, do what I think I should do or whatever it is. And alcohol turns that off. And I like that because it was like, hey, I don't need that voice in the back of my head saying you're not good enough, you're a terrible person, nobody likes you, you're too short, you're too whatever. Right? All those things were in my head, and alcohol shut that off. And now, when Terry first started drinking, and when I first started drinking, what we did was we liked it. And so we kept drinking. Not alcoholically, just like normal people. Maybe a little bit extra. We like a little extra. But we didn't realize that all along, every drink, every time we got that feeling, every time we saw a drink and felt it. I remember one time I was drinking alcoholically and I went to the restaurant and I was shaking so bad I had to hold my beer with two hands. And
Mm.
I remember I was shaken and I couldn't even. I would go to restaurants, I would order a meal, I wouldn't eat the meal, and I'd drink four beers every time. I was like, why did you even order a meal? Because I didn't want them to think I was here just to drink, which, okay, you know, mental problems of the alcoholic. And what I realized was I was shaking so bad, I was anticipating drinking with two hands because that's what I had to do. And the lady came around the corner of the bar because I was sitting in the seating area with my drink, and instantly I started to feel better. I was like, wait a minute. I didn't have alcohol, I just saw it, and I felt better. Wait a minute. What? What this is it's a blend of classical and operant conditioning. Now, in psychology, classical and operant conditionings are things that basically brainwash you to feel and think a certain way and act in a certain way. Why? Because of repetition. If you go to church all the time and they swat you on the hand with a ruler because, you said hi to a girl, pretty soon you're going to stop saying hi to girls. And you're not even going to think about it. You're just going to be like, oh, I'm conditioned. Oh, stay away. Saying hi to girl equals pain. That's what the conditioning does. Now, that is, I believe that one is called classical conditioning. It's an action with a consequence. Okay, now there's operant conditioning, which is, let's see, operant is the consequence one. Classical is the one where you're having a stimulus, something good, right? So I drink, I feel good. That is the classical one. Okay? The other one, something happens, I feel bad. Now, alcohol is a two-edged sword. Why? Because you're now drinking and you feel good, and not drinking and you feel bad. So you are doubly conditioned through thousands of repetitions that drinking makes you feel good and not drinking makes you feel bad. And you think that somehow you can fight that. And so did I. And you know what? I was wrong. You can't fight that. You need help because you are conditioned. Just like someone who gets out of a cult and you're like, hey, buddy, you know what? The moon is not out to get us. It's up there every night. It gives us light. And they're like, no, I think the moon is going to get us. And they're afraid of the moon. They go and hide. And you try to tell them, you're like, what is wrong with you? Nothing is wrong with them. They have been conditioned. And when you understand the power of conditioning, and you understand over and over and over and over again, we are picking up the drink, feeling good, not picking up the drink, feeling bad. It is conditioning us, and you wonder why you can't quit. This is why. Now, it's not an excuse, because there is a way to get out of this cycle, which we're going to talk about in number 7. But Terry, what was it like for you waking up to and living in the conditioning that alcohol had you in?
Oh, it was crazy. It was terrible. And because you alluded to it earlier, I had to drink to get myself back up to that base level. And when alcohol had left my system, let's say after I had slept, or shall we say passed out for those 4 or 5 hours every night, uh, I'd wake up and just feeling terrible. And I knew I had to have a drink, and that I made sure that I had a drink in the morning. I made sure that I had it available. I made sure I wasn't going to run out. It ruled my life, and that conditioning that I was conditioned. I had to have alcohol. As you were explaining the conditioning, I was thinking about my dog, and my dog experienced extreme abuse his first 2.5 years of life. We rescued him at 2.5 years, and he was afraid of everything. And it didn't. If you just moved your leg or moved your arm, he would run, literally run. And but he was afraid of men, so he was afraid of me. And we had to turn that around. We had to give him positive stimulus constantly, and that was food. And just give him little treats. Cut up a chicken breast, cook chicken breast, and train him. We still train him. We've had him for over 2 years now, and we train him every night still to keep that positive thing going, because he he's still afraid of stuff. He's very afraid of other dogs. He's very afraid of strange people. He's afraid of things he doesn't know, and that's what we've had to do, is give him that positive conditioning, which is the classical conditioning.
Hmm.
And he's come around. He knows like 32 commands now. He's a very well trained dog, but he still has that in him. And it's like I mean, it's different because alcohol is a chemical, but for me, I still have that alcoholism in me, and I have to be careful. I have to learn to live this different way of life that's
Yeah.
going to continue that positive conditioning.
Yeah. And I think it's difficult because what we think is that when we get sober, the world's going to bend to our will because we got sober. They're like, oh, yeah, they're going to celebrate me and things are going to go my way. And we realize that, no, you're just living life sober, right? Like, I don't know. I don't think the guy who won the $2 billion Powerball got sober the day before and now all of his dreams are coming true, right? And we start to look at this and we say, well, why is it so hard to stay sober? Why is relapse the norm and sobriety long term is not? I know more people who have relapsed than I know who have stayed sober the long haul. And the reason is you are fighting operant and classical conditioning. Right? I can feel better if I drink. I feel bad now that I'm not drinking. And where's my payoff? Go to AA? Okay, I mean, eventually, yeah, it feels good to go to AA and talk about your stuff. But in the beginning, you're kind of like, what do I do? And we're going to talk about in step 7, or what do we call it, reason 7, why this happens and how to get through it, because there is light at the end of the tunnel. Only when you get sober, you don't even know there's a tunnel. Right? You're like, it's just dark. I don't know. I don't know what's going on, and it's difficult and it's a long road, but it's a very rewarding road, and it's a road where you're going to see life in a different way. And that brings us to number 3 of why you keep drinking, which is to escape or relax. You want to take this one? Start this one out, Terry?
Oh, sure. Yeah, for me, drinking was definitely an escape from life. I was a chef my whole career, and I would definitely have some difficult days, get home, and being a manager, I had to worry about work the next day. Worry about the party of 2,000 that we're going to have the next day, things like that. Worry, do I have enough staff? Or, Easter's coming up. Do I have everything all set? Life was very stressful. Chefing is a very stressful job, as I think any job can be, definitely. But I would definitely drink to escape. And I'd also drink because I had a tough day, a 15-hour day of serving people all day long, and then I just want to relax. And it was really a way out for me, a way to relax, a way to just kind of escape and not worry about tomorrow right now, and take tomorrow as it comes.
Yeah.
And that was definitely a staple in for decades for me.
Yeah. and it's interesting too because I used to think that I needed alcohol to relax, which was a
Right.
lie. Like the fact that I felt like I needed a substance to relax was a lie. And the thought that I needed to have a substance to escape reality was also a lie. Right? We do this all the time by watching TV or reading or simply sitting with our own thoughts or anything else. It's kind of like years ago, I studied hypnosis like crazy. I used to be a magician, so studying hypnosis was kind of like that's what we do. We read about that as well. And it's interesting because a lot of people think of hypnosis as this crazy thing that you do that is different from normal life. And in actuality, it's not. Right now, you are in a hypnotic state listening to us. When you're driving your car, if you've ever driven your car and then you get home and you're like, wait a minute, I don't remember driving home. Did our camera freeze? I think my camera might have froze.
Mine's looking good so far.
Let me see here.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it froze right there. Yeah, we're moving again.
is it moving again? Mine's not.
Mine is. Yeah.
Let's see here. Uh, all right, Terry, go ahead and say something, and we'll get. I'll get
Well,
that
I'll
fixed.
just let me hit a comment or two. Ben says it, and good to see you, Ben, and all you regulars. And Andrea, it looks like Ben says, Andrea, true, I have complex PTSD and I always have my triggers. It's a matter of recognizing them, and that helps a lot. A big one for me is when people behave in ways that don't make sense to me. And yeah, that's a great point. For me, I've had those triggers. Andrea mentioned the benign neglect is a form of abuse, and it wasn't that bad for me, Andrea. Sure, my parents did kind of let me do what I wanted, but that's not something I focus on anymore. I grew up the way I grew up, and now it's a matter of living life the way life comes at me, and I try not to dwell on the past for sure. But yeah, and oh Ben, your coach, good job. A tablespoon or a teaspoon of vinegar in there, I'm sure, made it good. How we doing, Marcus?
Working on it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, is that back? Hello, I'm here.
And welcome,
All
Steve.
right.
Good to see you here for the first time.
Okay, so back on the hypnosis topic, we were talking about how it works, and when you're driving home and you don't realize how you got home, and you don't realize, every turn you made and everything like that, you were in a state of hypnosis, and that's basically what relaxation or escaping life is you're in a different state. I think one of the things that Dr. Freud talked about that I actually liked, some of his stuff was like, okay, you're a weirdo. But some of it was interesting. And one that was interesting was the idea of hysteria, right? Okay, you're in a hysteria state or histrionic or whatever it is. And that is a state. Interesting, okay? There's some other people that I studied that were big into hypnosis. And they had talked about how no matter what, you're always in a state, right? And you're believing your own reality. This is why I like Eastern, like Buddhist philosophy or Hindu philosophy, because everything is about your current act in the current play, right? Life is a play. We're all here and we're acting accordingly. I will be able to say that right. And when we think things are the way they should be or shouldn't be, oftentimes that's us acting in accordance with what we currently believe. And it's not a matter of needing to escape or relax from that. It's a matter of looking at things different. And I think one of the things that alcoholism gave me was the ability to change my perspective. Right? I remember when my grandpa passed when I was drinking, it was kind of like the straw on the camel's back. I was having trouble with work. I couldn't stop drinking. Family stuff was going all crazy. And now grandpa dies, and I'm like, why is all this happening to me? And I thought, okay, well, is this happening to me? Is the whole world like against me? Is there some cosmic force up there that's like, we want to screw things up for Marcus so that he keeps drinking? No. It's life. I'm involved in it. I chose to believe that these things were bad happening only to me, when in reality, like 200,000 people die every single day. Every day, someone is losing a loved one. It wasn't partial to me. Now, is it sad? Of course it's sad. Is it difficult? Of course it's difficult. But these things happen. And when I started to look at life and be like, okay, this ego that I built for self preservation is now hindering me. Because now it's saying that everything is about me, rather than this is what is. Rather than celebrating the life of my grandpa, I chose to go into depression and look at how it affected me, which is different because I was a lot closer to my dad, and I lost my dad recently in sobriety, and the way that I looked at it was so much different. Had I looked at it the same, I probably would have gone to the bar because I wouldn't have known to deal with it. And the only thing that changed was perspective. That's the only thing that changed. And the ability to realize that I can feel how I want to feel without a substance. If I want to relax, I relax. The mind is like a lens, and you get what you focus on. If I focus on what bad is going on, I'm going to find all the reasons my life is bad. If I focus on the good, I'll focus on all the things that are good. If you start thinking about pink elephants, all of a sudden a pink elephant comes in your head. If you start thinking about red Corvettes, I guarantee you're going to see more red Corvettes today than you ever saw before. Why? Did they all come out because you thought of it and the world aligns to your thinking as those law of attraction people think? No. You're just simply noticing it. And I think that's important because we don't need to drink anymore to escape or relax. And that brings us to number 4, which is the fourth reason that you or I or Terry are incapable or were incapable of not drinking was that it's a method of thought control. I remember years ago, and Terry, you might, I don't know if you ever grew up in churches, but it's a scary place to grow up.
Yes, I did.
And I remember our pastor said that our thoughts are a war, and the good thoughts are God, and the bad thoughts are the devil. Like basically when you're a kid, you get the little demon in the whatever on your shoulder. And that's the worst thing you can ever tell anyone, especially someone who suffers from obsessive compulsive thoughts. Because when you look at that, now I'm in a war with my thoughts. And I had to drink to get away from it. I literally was like, that thought came in, I am bad. That thought came in, I am good. There is a war. I need to go to the bar because there's this war. And Terry, what was it like for you? Did you use alcohol as a method of thought control?
Well, I used it, as I was saying earlier, I used it to relax, definitely. Yeah, I'm thinking about it, sure, even when I was young, used it to help me in uncomfortable situations, like going to a party for alcohol and being uncomfortable, talking to girls or just talking to anybody and feeling like I didn't have anything to say. Drink more. That'll loosen me up. That'll allow me to talk. There's a form of thought control right there.
Yeah.
And once again, trying to relax and trying to take the stress out. I mean, I don't know how many times I've come home from work or whatever and said, I need a drink after that. Or something bad happens in my life, I need a drink after that. Definitely.
Absolutely.
So,
and I used it.
Let me answer a quick question. David,
Sure.
You asked about Zoom meetings, and the app is free. There is a paid version. You don't need it to go to meetings. Just download the app first, and then you can Google meetings, and you'll find them. There's lots of them, and you don't have to show your face. You don't have to talk. You don't have to do anything. Or you can do all that, which I would encourage, and get involved. There you go.
Absolutely. And Miss B says, my mind will tell me that was a really stressful, you deserve a beer. Yeah, and for mine, I couldn't stop the racing thoughts. I couldn't stop my thoughts. I needed to drink. And I remember I would always joke because my office is in my backyard, and I would take a 12-pack of beer from the fridge to the office. I used to joke, I'd be like taking my suitcase to work. The only problem was I went to work at about 8 a.m., started drinking at 8 a.m. And why? Why? because I felt like I needed to shut my brain off and slow down so that I could work. That's what I thought, right? And then I went to therapy and they're like, you're self medicating. And I'm like, okay, now that I look back, I'm like, no, I'm an alcoholic. Self medicating, I mean, that's silly. I'm an alcoholic. And that's something that I think was very important, is to look at the fact that, my thoughts controlled my reality. My thoughts controlled everything and the way I perceive stuff. And then I remember listening to a talk. I used to listen to it over and over when I was drinking. I'd go for a walk, I'd put my headphones in, and I would listen to it, and I didn't get it, but I liked it. I was like, why do I like this talk, but I don't get it? And what he was talking about was that this idea that our thoughts are things, and our thoughts are reality, and our thoughts are this, and our thoughts are that, is hogwash. And guess what? It's not even your thoughts. If you want proof, you didn't invent the English language, which is what most of us here in America think in. You didn't invent it. They're not even your words. And if you are a church person and you go to church, you start thinking about church more. And if you watch a show on TV, you start thinking about what that TV show is about. And if you repress something, that starts to go to the forefront of your mind. And what we don't realize is that it's not so much using it as a method of thought control. It's realizing that the thoughts don't matter. Thoughts don't matter. Right? I'm going to have thoughts all day long. What it is chemical impulses in the brain. That's all it is. Firing chemical impulses. Right? I got a computer here, and since I buy video game computers because they're powerful enough to run all this stuff, they're cheaper than business computers of the same caliber. But the difference is when you get a gaming computer, it's got a glass cover and all these cool twinkly lights, and it looks neat. And I can see everything, and I can see chemical impulses in the RAM. I could see the video card's got a little chemical impulses, and I'm not sitting there looking at it like, oh my God, that's bad. Unless I get an error that's like, Windows 504 error, need to shut down. Then I realize, hey, that's just a faulty thing there. I replace it and it's good. Ah, wait, interesting. So if there's a faulty thought pattern, I can replace it and be good? Yeah, you can. The thought patterns that happened when I drank are still there somewhere, but I replace them with new stuff. And a solution never gets replaced. It gets superseded. A bad thought never gets replaced. It gets superseded by a new good thought or something that you like, right? And you start to realize that, hey, wait a minute. I don't need to control my thoughts. I just need to stop caring so much, right? You're spending all day, and I remember Alan Watts says, a person who thinks all the time has nothing to think about except thoughts. You are in a loop, right? If I take this little fancy computer here and I plug the processor into itself and turn it on, it's going to keep looking for everything, but it's going to look with the processor that's trying to look for everything, and it can't find anything, and it's going to go around and go around and go nuts, and pretty soon it's going to be like, we need like a hard drive, we need this, we need that. And that's what your mind's doing. It's going in a loop. That's all it is. And once we realize, hey, it's not good or bad thoughts, good or bad people, it's a loop. It's it. It's a loop. Same thing. Like I have this issue with my brain where I have to figure stuff out. My wife hates it because she can't complain about anything. I got to figure it out. You'd be like, I know, we're going to figure this out back in 1982 and this here and that there. And she's like, I just want to tell you about my bad day. And I'm like, well, I have to fix it. That's what I need to do. I am, like Fix It Felix on that cartoon. We're jumping around like an idiot. Yeah, that's me, jumping around like an idiot. But then I realized that that's just the way my brain works. If you currently have racing thoughts, that's just the way your brain works.
Right. And one of the ways that I've learned to stop that loop of just going around in circles and circles, and we've talked about it before, but for me, it's really quite simple, and that's just realizing and accepting the fact that, yeah, things are going to happen, and they're going to happen to me. even though they're just happening in the world, it happens to be affecting me. Things are going to happen, but I can control how I react to these situations. And that stops that loop for me, realizing that I can control this. I don't have to react in a negative way. I can try to respond in a positive way. And that stops a lot of this stuff from happening for me.
Yeah. Danon says, so what are some good ways to switch them off now with sobriety? One of the things I learned is you don't switch bad thoughts off. You don't. What you do is you look at it like a river. Right? I think this comes from Hinduism, where your thoughts are like a river. You're sitting at a river and you see the thoughts go by. Some of them are salmon. Some of them are tuna fish. I don't know. There's a big river if there's a tuna fish in there. But at any rate, the minnows and some gars and some other fish. And what it is it's the picking up of them that makes the difference. It's the dwelling on them. You can have the thought, but what you're going to do is you're going to train yourself not to dwell on it. And then what you're going to realize is they don't happen as often because you're not paying mind to them, right? It's like if I sit here and I'm like, don't think of a pink elephant, don't think of a pink elephant, don't think of a pink elephant. And I keep saying that, eventually you are going to think of a pink elephant. You probably already did. And so we look at that and we're like, okay, so it is my dwelling on it and my picking it up that matters, not the chemical impulse. Because see, what you're doing and what I did was you have the chemical impulse and then you attach a little meaning to it. This means I'm bad. This means I'm good. This means this. This means that. Like when your boss says, hey, I want to talk to you. You go sit and think about what he wants to talk to you about. Spend 2 hours like, oh, what's he going to talk? Is it about this? Is it about... Why don't you just wait and hear what he has to talk about? Everything else is just mental self-pleasing, as it were. And we start to realize that these will go away when you shut the loop down by not paying mind to it, right? And the way you can practice is say, hey, when I'm doing something, I'm going to do that. When I'm driving, I'm going to focus on driving. When I'm doing the dishes, I'm going to focus on the feel of the water. I'm going to focus on what I'm doing. I'm going to focus on the fact that I have gratitude that there was food that went on these plates that made them dirty. I'm going to focus on the fact that life is lived now. Because right now, when you have those thoughts, they're about past and future. They're never about right now, unless you're having something right now, like a health issue or whatever. But they're always about something that happened or something that's going to happen. Right? Anxiety is about things that are going to happen. That's all it is. Anxiety is basically future tripping. And when we realize I'm going to live in this moment. Right now, I'm talking to Terry, I'm talking to you guys about alcoholism. And I'm going to be present. And I'm going to try to do my best. And guess what? While I'm doing this talks, thoughts have been coming in. Little thoughts come in. And I don't pay attention to them. And that's the key, is learning the ability to not pay attention to them. Because I used to carry a notebook everywhere because I thought my thoughts were gold. I gotta write them down. Oh, Marcus is so smart. Look at how great he is. And then I tried to read them and I'm like, what a drunk. They didn't matter. And realizing that ego is your thoughts. Self-preservation. Yeah. That's all it is. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Thanks for sharing.
Well, I've always found to get out of that loop, I have to stay busy, and that's what you just mentioned. Was one thing that I heard when I first got sober was when you wake up, make your bed. Super simple stuff. Make your bed, clean the dishes. You already mentioned the dishes. Mow the lawn, do stuff like that. Clean the house. Do I want to? No, not really, but that does help get me out of those thoughts. Or go do something I like to do. I like to go hiking. I like to ride my bicycle. Mm-hmm. In fact, I may be going on a bike ride on Saturday when it's 30 degrees. I don't know why, but that's what my friends are going to do. But that's going to get me out of my thoughts, going on a bike ride, trying to figure out these things of how do I stay warm? How do I avoid the ice? Things like that. But staying busy. Talking with other alcoholics. Yeah, your problem that you might be stuck in that loop may come up, but they may be able to help you talk your way out of it because maybe they were in the same situation. or maybe you can help somebody else. Volunteering is always a good thing. There's so many things you can do to stay busy
Yeah.
and get out of those thoughts.
And meetings are, I'm not like a avid AA attendee. I go maybe once every 6 months, every 3 months. But I will tell you, if I can't get out of a thought loop and I go to an AA meeting, it helps. Or even talking to Terry helps. Or talking to you guys or doing this helps. Because it gets me out of my thought process
Yeah.
and helps me focus on different things. And it's interesting. I learned when I went to the gym like a long time ago. Clearly, I don't go to the gym today. But I went to the gym, and I remember I would get anxious because, it's anxiety provoking. You don't want to be like the guy lifting the 1 pound weight and struggling, and that's me. I'm over there, I'm like, give me the twos. Oh, I can't do those, But I would be out there and I would get anxious. But then when I started exercising, I realized I can't have anxiety and exercise at the same time. It's impossible. Didn't work. And so I realized, hey, when I'm doing physical stuff, the anxiety can't be there, so maybe I'll work out. Right? And a lot of it, what we don't realize, is a lot of what alcohol was replacing was deficiencies in other areas. Lack of exercise, lack of sleep, lack of vitamins, lack of eating properly. Right? Like alcohol literally depletes your vitamins, and you're like, why can't I think normal? Because one, it's a depressant. Two, it makes your mind warped. And three, it depletes your vitamins. And it's like, okay, that's what's going on. Number 5 was an important one, which is we had trouble quitting because we wanted to feel good, fit in, and we had a fear of quitting alcohol. Terry, you want to take that one?
Oh, I absolutely had fear of quitting. And it was fear of the detox. I'd tried many times, and the detox was strong for me. And then, so that was the main fear, that initial fear of having to get through that, and the pain that was involved with that. But also there was the fear of, what am I going to do? Life's going to become boring. I won't be able to go hang out with my friends at the bar and go do this and go do that. Everything in my life revolved around alcohol, or at least alcohol was involved in everything in my life. And I've learned since getting sober that I'm able to live life without alcohol, no problem. I'm able to hang out with other friends. I don't go to the bar and drink and hang out with them while I'm drinking soda. That would be a dangerous situation for me. But I can go out, and I can go out and meet them for dinner, and they can have drinks, and I can have my soda or whatever, ice water, Pellegrino, whatever it is. I can do that, and that was big for me to learn that.
Mm-hmm.
But feeling good, alcohol made me feel good till the very last day I drank it. Some people, I've heard, some of the people, they lose that feeling. It doesn't work for them anymore. It doesn't make them feel good. They just need the alcohol to get back up to not feeling really, really bad. For me, it made me feel good. It made me feel good for less and less time. Like I would have a bunch of drinks and I'd feel good for 20 minutes and that's it. And then I'd have to drink more until I passed out. But that was it. The fit in part, that was more in the early years of drinking. I drank because other people did. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be part of a group. Everyone else was drinking. In high school, they had after-school kegs. Oh, I got to go to that so I can be part of the gang. And, did that sort of thing. College, same thing.
Now,
And,
with
go
the
ahead.
fit in one, was it something that made you keep drinking, even though towards the end, both you and I were drinking at home by ourselves? Was that something like, okay, if I quit, I'm not going to fit in?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that if I quit, then life was over. I'd have to sit at home and, I don't know, do nothing, stare at the wall.
Yeah.
I couldn't socialize anymore. And that is not at all the case.
Yeah.
All of my friends that I used to drink with, they're all still friends. I don't go drinking with them, but they're still friends, and I still do stuff with them.
Yeah. Real quick, JM says, I recently took a promotion at work and attending dinners where alcohol is at these events. Being sober almost 2.5 years, thanks to Terry and Marcus, has helped me stay strong. Congrats, JM. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, and that's one of the things, too, is like JM's talking about. There was that fear in the beginning of how am I going to go to these parties where there's alcohol? How am I going to fit in at work when everyone drinks? For me, I didn't go to conventions in my business for 5 years. I recently, or no, 4 years. No, it's 5 years. Yeah, 2019 or something like that. 4 or 5 years. Because I know there's alcohol. And the one that I did start going to, I know was ran by the YouTube conference I go to was run by a Mormon guy. So it wasn't like a drunk fest like the other ones. There was drinking, but I found that it was okay. And my desire to fit in and be that way went away because I found out it didn't really matter. Right? If I had a sparkling drink of some sort without alcohol, nobody really cared. And
Right.
quite frankly, I can't tell you how many times the bartender doesn't charge you if you don't get an actual drink. They don't even, you just give them a tip. They're like, I don't charge. I'm like, well, let me at least tip you, which is cool because you save thousands of dollars. But that was a thing. And then the fear of quitting was the fear of living without the security that alcohol provided. False security, but I did feel that, which is important. And number 6, we'll get into anxiety, racing thoughts, and mental disturbances. This was a big one for me. Anxiety was off the charts. I remember one time I couldn't even go to the mailbox, my mailbox, down the street from my house. That's how anxious I was. Racing thoughts 24/7. My thoughts were always racing unless I was drinking. Mental disturbances, I was in anguish. And I couldn't get away from these. I felt like I had to drink, and I felt like if I didn't drink, these would not go away. And when I quit drinking, they didn't go away. I still had anxiety, racing thoughts, mental disturbances. But it was the staying sober long enough to learn that I didn't need these things when they started to go away. And I'll never forget it. It was a couple years ago. It was like anxiety just dropped. And I remember I was sitting with my family and I was like, you know how I usually get anxious here? It's gone. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, it is completely gone.
Awesome.
Like I tried to get it back and I was like, maybe I need to be anxious. And it went away. And then I remember, I would drive my wife nuts because I always had to move. I would always move and shift around and everything like that. And it drove her nuts. And then all of a sudden, this calm came. And I was okay. And I didn't try to get it. It was a byproduct.
I've heard that from so many sober alcoholics that just one day they realized their anxiety was gone, or at least it was a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, and the mental disturbances, it started to go. And, someone says, why do we relapse again and again? It's because of these 7 things. Because you're fighting them. Like you're fighting a battle that you already lost. You can't win. That's why it's so important to surrender to alcohol and say, I'm an alcoholic. I can't drink. You win. I will not touch you again, the alcohol. Not going to drink ever again. As long as I can keep that going. And I start to realize that that's the only way you're going to beat that. It's the only way the mental disturbances, the racing thoughts, and anxiety are going to be at bay. And of course, go talk to a doctor about them. Because number 7, the biggest thing you are fighting as an alcoholic. You can try to quit. You can go to meetings. You could do this. You could do that. You could only drink this day, only drink that day. Get 500 therapists a week. But you can't battle this. And that is that you are chemically dependent as an alcoholic. All these things, all the 6 things we went through before, no better solution, painful thoughts, operant classical conditioning repeated thousands of times, escape, relax, method of thought control, feel good, fit in, fear of quitting, anxiety, racing thoughts, mental disturbances. And on top of it, you're chemically dependent. And you wonder why so many people relapse because they don't realize that all of this going on and that half of it, maybe more, is caused by alcohol. And it's not until you say, oh, shit, it's the booze. I better stop having that. Once you start saying that and stop being dependent on a chemical by not introducing the chemical. Now remember, chemical dependency is dangerous. When you have a chemical in your body and you take it away, dangerous. Go to the doctor, no matter what. Just go figure it out with the doctor. They know what they're doing. But the beauty is, 7 days after, pretty much the chemical has left your body, if it's alcohol. 2 weeks, pretty much gone. Now you're dealing with the other stuff, which is the mental battle. But
Right.
that's difficult to deal with. Because you're like, what am I going to do with my racing thoughts and anxiety and mental disturbances? The only solution I know is to drink. Well, when you stop drinking, you got to find a better solution. It's difficult, it's hard, but it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life.
Absolutely.
Any thoughts on chemical dependency?
I was chemically dependent, and I no longer am. And that's just what you said. The pain, the difficulty in getting through that hump, and learning how to live a new life is so worth it to become not chemically dependent. And just like Marcus said, I was chemically dependent until, it took me a week or two to get off of the chemical dependency. Although it's still there, it can come back. All it takes is one drink, and I'm going to start to crave it again. Will I go back to that needing the large amount of alcohol right away? Maybe not. My past has shown me that when I have done that, I have gone back to the drinking a ton right away. So I would have to take that past experience as fact. But the challenge for me was that time after I got through the detox and got the alcohol out of my system was learning how to live a new life, learning how to live life differently. And I think Mrs. B was mentioning, you said one of my things is, what am I going to do if I don't drink? It's so boring. And that's what I thought too. It's not boring. Life is much better. And when I was drinking, life was boring. Now that I look back on it, maybe I had some good times when I was drinking, but for the most part, it was pretty boring. And now I get to do things any time of day, any time of night, and I get to do whatever I want. Ski season starts this week. I might go skiing this weekend. What the heck? Can't believe I can do that. Stuff like that.
Absolutely. And I think once you realize that these issues, this is what you're battling. And it's a difficult battle. I get it. I've done it. It sucks. But until you get the chemical dependency out, you are going to fight a losing battle. Because if the chemical's still introduced, or you keep introducing it every couple weeks, it's going to start the whole cycle over again.
Yeah.
But if you stay away, and you're like, hey, let's give it a year. Let's not drink for a year, or 2 years, or whatever. And is that to say that, on the 366th day, you're going to go have a kegger? No. Go for a year, see what happens.
Yeah.
And realize that this is something that is very difficult to deal with. But you can do it. Detox, go to a doctor, or go to a doctor before you detox, obviously, and start to make a plan. And I remember my resolve was, I'm not going to drink. Sometimes I got close. I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it because I know it's going to fire up all 7 of these things. And I can't fight that. I can't win. That's why people that relapse, they don't go to the bar and have one beer. They disappear for a couple months or years because all this stuff comes rearing back. And I know it's right there. All this stuff's right there. Introduce alcohol, that's what it does to my brain. Game over, it wins, I lose. So,
Yeah.
those are the 7 things that kept us from being able to stay sober. Those are the 7 things that kept us drinking over and over and over again, like a moth to a flame, automatically, and every time we got burned. Only way to do it, stay away from the flame that is alcohol and get sober. Thanks for being here, guys. Smash the like button. Go to talksober.com if you want to support the channel and get all kinds of reports and MP3s and videos and stuff to help you get and stay sober. We worked really hard on that program, and we want to build that to be a bigger thing, and we can use your support. Go over to talksober.com, click the big yellow button, sign up. Less than $1 a day. Support what we're doing and get all kinds of tools to help you get and stay sober. Thanks for being here. Subscribe, and we'll see you next week.